Now it's time to work on step 3 of the writing process. This step is called revising your writing. When you revise your writing, you don't necessarily change the whole story, but you can change pieces within your writing. You can change words, you can add words, you can take words away, you can move things around. So even though you're keeping the same story, you're kind of changing it to make it better to you. So let's take a look at how we do that. Just as a reminder, my small moment story is about when I hiked a volcano. So whatever your small moment story is, pause this video, take a minute and go ahead and get it out. When we revise, we use something called ARMS. Now, we've been focusing on the A, which means add. You can add words and sentences to your writing. This is one of the things that I still want you to mainly focus on. Although you can remove words, you can move things around, and you can substitute words. For example, instead of saying mad, you can say, I was furious, because it's kind of a bigger word and it sounds very cool when you use it. So you can substitute words like that. Just as a reminder, you might want to also have out your beginning, middle, and end graphic organizer. It may not look exactly like mine. Yours may just be written in your writer's notebook. But whatever you have that you wrote your map on, that you wrote your pre-write on, it's good to have that out so that you can make sure that your story is still sticking to what you wanted it to be. I'm going to take you through the beginning, middle, and end of my story. Since I'm mostly focusing on adding, I have that A circled, but remember, we can do more than just add. Everything written in purple is something that I've added to my story. So, I went to a country called New Zealand. One of the things I did there was hike a volcano. When it was finally time to do this activity, we had to ride in a very bumpy truck to get to the volcano. Here's the sentence I chose to add. The bumpy truck took us partway up the mountain, so we didn't have to climb as far. I felt like that was a good detail for my readers to know. On the way, we saw baby joeys. It took a while, but we finally got to the top. I'm very happy with what I added to the beginning of my story, and I want you to think of what you could add to the beginning of your story. Now that I've added something, I'm going to make sure that I still talked about the bumpy truck, seeing some wild joeys, and arriving to the top. And I did. It looks like even though I've added something, my story still sticks with what I wrote down at the first time that I pre-wrote my story. Now I'm going to move on to the middle of my story. I made sure that I had transition words in my story. Those words like first, next, after that, finally. So those are in purple to remind you that you should add some transition words to your story as well. Remember, everything in purple is what I've added to my story. The first thing we did was begin to climb up the volcano. When we got closer to the top, there was ice all over it because of how high in the sky it was. Next, we got to go down into the center. This is called the crater. Here's what I added. The crater was very steep, which means very hard to walk down because it was so deep. Our tour guide had to teach us how to walk down or else we could get hurt. Even though it was scary, it was pretty cool to see down where the explosions happen. So one other thing I did, in addition to adding a sentence, I decided to add more words into a sentence that I already wrote. This sentence here, even though it was scary, it was pretty cool to see down where the explosions happened. Before, my sentence was just, it was pretty cool to see down where the explosions happened. So if you don't add a whole sentence, you can add just words into other sentences that you've already written. Let's make sure that I kept up with talking about the ice towards the top and going down inside the crater. There was ice and crater. Good, I'm still sticking to my graphic organizer. And last, at the end. Finally, we climbed back out of the crater and headed back towards the truck. When we got back up to the top, we took a few final pictures to remember all the fun we had. I got to take a picture by the sign that had the name of the volcano on it. At the end of the day, we left in the bumpy truck to go home. I still talked about climbing out of the crater, taking final pictures, and leaving in the bumpy truck. So, now I want you to think, what can I add to my story? Is there anything that I need to take away because it's not talking about my small moment? Is there anything that I need to move around? Maybe something at the end would make more sense to go at the beginning. Or are there any words that I can substitute? Remember, that's making a word a little bit more fancy. So, if you're not ready for this step and you're still working on finishing the beginning, middle, and end of your rough draft, continue to do that. Once you feel like you're done with beginning to end, that's when you can go back and look and see what you can add, remove, move, and substitute. Revising takes a lot of practice, and sometimes it's really tough and we get stuck. Remember, your teacher is here to help you. This video is here to get your brain started working, but your teacher is someone who's going to give you a lot of great ideas on how to make your story better through revision. Good luck, everybody.